Today is June 16th, 2014. My name is Chris Reedy, and I'm on the campus of Ball State University, the studios of WIPB TV. With me today is Jim Dolan, a veteran of the Army Air Corps during World War II. Mr. Dolan, could you tell us when and where you were born?
Yes, I was born December the 26th, 1923 in Hertford City, Blackford County Hospital.
You were a young man of the Depression. Can you tell us what it was like when you were growing up?
The Depression, everybody, it was hard times, and nobody had much. And if you get a job and make 20 cents an hour at J.C. Penney's, which I did, that was, guys were fighting for those jobs.
When you were in high school, I believe, when the war was raging in Europe, what were your thoughts at that time?
Well, everybody was concerned about this, and I was in high school, and we thought we probably would be drug into it, but we didn't. We had other things we were thinking about besides that, till Pearl Harbor.
Where were you when the attack on Pearl Harbor happened?
Well, I was a senior in high school when Pearl Harbor happened. I was on campus at Purdue University, going over there with some friends for the weekend.
What were your thoughts when you knew we were at war?
When I knew we were at war, I thought that I didn't know where Pearl Harbor was. And when it happened, we soon learned all about it. And I remember going home that evening, and my folks, my dad had been in World War I and was about that similar age that I was now. And he said, "Don't do anything dumb," meaning don't just go right out and get your diploma first before you go. That I remember.
So you finished high school, and were you attending college before you enlisted?
Yes, I went down to IU to try to get a little college in before I went into the service. And I was there till December of 42, and went in service in March of 43.
Can you tell us what motivated you to enlist?
Well, what motivated me to enlist was we were all caught up in this thing. We got attacked, and we were going to fight evil, as we knew what evil was, and in our definition of evil.
Did you consider yourself very patriotic at that point in your life?
Well, yeah, the times were so different. Everybody was caught up in this thing, and we all were wanting to contribute, and all of our friends were going in service. And if the hard times that we had, service at that time wasn't all that bad. You got 3 meals a day and a roof over your head and new clothes.
So going from the Depression to the military was a much smaller leap from civilian life to the military.
Yeah, we went from the Depression to getting shot at. That's what it amounted to after we got out of high school.
What did you have a choice as far as the Army Air Corps, and what led you to that?
When we went down to Fort Bend, they asked us if we had a preference. Didn't mean we were going to get it. I preferred the Air Corps.
Did you have a kind of an attraction to flying?
Yeah, I did. I liked the idea of flying. It was fairly new. The first thing I can ever remember as a child was Lindbergh flying the Atlantic, and had a friend in the neighborhood putting together an airplane with World War I Jenny with baling wire and rags, and went over there and hold a lantern for him while he was doing it. And he told me he'd take us up and make me up in that airplane in the spring when we got together, until my mother saw it, and she said, "You're not flying in that kite."
You said previously your father had military experience.
Yes.
What was your family's reaction to you enlisting?
It was fine with them. This was a war. Everybody was in that war. There was no hesitation. My father was already in service in World War II. He had been in World War I. He got a commission overseas in World War I, and he went in as a captain in World War II, and was a postal officer at Keesler Field in Mississippi.
So your family had a background in military service. You enlisted. Can you tell us about your training a little bit then?
Well, yes. We went to Gulfport, Mississippi, where I trained as a airplane mechanic. And then they sent me to Santa Monica, California, to Douglas Aircraft for 30 days to learn about two airplanes, the A-20 and the C-54, which they were manufacturing at that plant. And while I was there, we had a chance to sign up to go to aerial gunnery school, and I did, and I went to Kingman, Arizona for my gunnery training, and then went to Columbia, South Carolina, where I was assigned to a pilot as a team and on A-20s, which was my first choice for airplane, because I'd been at school on A-20s. And we trained. My pilot, Donald Ivan Good, and I were assigned together, and we took a train from Savannah, Georgia to San Francisco, where we went from Hamilton Field to Port Moresby, New Guinea, where we were assigned to the 312th Bomb Group. That was pretty much the beginnings.
Can you tell us about your plane, the A-20 that you're describing? What was its role, and what was your role in that plane?
Well, the A-20 was a light attack bomber, low-level bomber, manufactured by Douglas Aircraft, had two Wright engines, a crew of two, pilot and gunner, had in the nose were machine gun, 50 caliber machine guns, and pilot fired those, and I was on a Martin upper turret in the back, and had twin 50s rotate in the turret, and we dropped bombs. We flew low level, so we had to have those bombs. They were frag bombs with parachutes, so that we could get out of the way of the bomb blast by having those bombs dropping a little slowly. And that's kind of what our mission was. We flew like 10 to 50 feet off the ground in ground support of the infantry, and we were firing into targets with what firepower we had.
With your A-20s, the reading I've done is they attacked ground targets. Did you also have any shipping attacks?
A few, mainly an awful lot of our tour was the Philippines, and we were in ground support in a lot of that. We flew very few medium altitude missions.
So you were on the deck most of the time.
We were down low, yeah.
What special hazards come from flying that low?
Well, if you lose power suddenly, you don't have a whole lot of escape. Some of them, and if you get shot, they're throwing everything at you they could, mortars and everything else, and we got hit quite a bit with small arms, and the crew chief come back and said, "Boy, you sure got messed up my airplane." Well, that's what happens.
How many missions do you think you had close calls?
I don't know. I've got a list of all those missions, and it shows ack and deaths and so forth. And I never did take the time to check. We got hit. In a flight, everybody got hit, and but not on every mission. But somebody take some. Then someone we lost.
How did you and your squadron mates deal with the losses?
I don't know. We were young. I was 20. My pilot was 21, and we didn't think it was going to happen to us. And you know, you knew it could happen, but we didn't dwell on it. I didn't dwell on it.
What was your closest call?
Oh, well, we got up at Formosa. I think the closest was up at Formosa, which was a long flight, and we got hit with some ground shot. But we also went through a bomb burst, in that our vertical stabilizer was messed up good and took out our intercom. And my pilot thought I was dead. He couldn't reach me, but I knew he was alive because a plane was flying, and I could smell his cigarette smoke coming back after. So I knew he was flying, but he couldn't, and he thought I was dead. And but there was a hit right back in my head that knocked out all that intercom, and then the tail. I looked at that tail, and geez, and we were quite a ways from home. But that was probably the closest.
Did you went in, you were 20, and I think you said your pilot was 21. You were young.
We were young. We were kids.
Did you think you were invincible?
No, but no, because my pilot wasn't great on navigation. He called me once and said, "You know where the hell we are?" And I said, "I don't have any idea." But no, you just did it one day at a time, you know. And but I never thought of us as being invincible. Maybe lucky.
Did you ever get nervous?
Sure you did.
Can you explain?
Yeah, I got nervous.
Can you explain some of the routines for a flight? Typical day.
Well, we'd get in trucks. We would be, sometimes we would be told about the mission the night before and what we might expect, which I didn't ever think was all that great because you had to sleep on that. Then we'd get in trucks and go out to the flight line and check everything, make sure there was ammunition in the boxes, and make sure everything was go. And get in and take off. And I didn't really have all that much to do except sit back there and hope we get airborne. And we had communications, the pilot and I, and we got, you know, after all that time, we got to know each other pretty well. And there was a lot of, there was a distinction between enlisted men and officers, but it was a lot less rigid in the Air Corps, especially with combat crews. And
you were, what was your rank and what was your pilot's rank?
My pilot was second lieutenant and made first lieutenant, and I was staff sergeant. Most all the gunners in our squadron were staff sergeants.
As a gunner, the turret was on the upper fuselage.
Yeah. Yes, the turret was on the top of the airplane. Back in there was, we couldn't get to each other in flight. There was no, it was a small plane, and we were separated permanently from getting to each other.
Did you ever have to bail out?
No. I never had to bail out.
Did enemy fighters, did you encounter?
No, only from a distance one time. The Japanese Air Force, the time I got over there, were not a factor like they had been. Now, they bombed us at night. They'd come over, but as far as on our missions, we didn't have a lot of, very little of that.
You still had to remain vigilant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they were there. We knew they were there, and there were some places where they were active, but they took a beating at Midway, and they took a beating in New Guinea.
When did you begin combat operations? What month and year?
We got over there in June of 1944.
Prior to the operations in the Philippines in October of '44, you flew some missions.
Prior to the invasion of the Philippines, we were active in Dutch New Guinea. We were stationed in Hollandia, New Guinea, for a couple of months, to the invasion. Trying to think when that was. I remember we went up there to Leyte soon after the invasion, and we couldn't fly because it was like the monsoon, or we couldn't get an airstrip down. So since there was nothing for us to do, they sent me and another gunner. We got rest and recreation in Sydney, Australia. We were down there for 10 days and couldn't get transportation back up, so we were down there a little longer. Spent all of our money, so we had to borrow from the Red Cross to have a place to stay. But it worked out.
What did you do in your downtime for recreation between missions?
Well, our downtime, our war experiences in the Air Corps, at least for me, was impersonal. We did hand-to-hand fight and know we were killing. It was all impersonal. We didn't ever see who we were shooting at. We were going too fast. And I have no idea whether I killed anybody or killed a lot. You just don't know. But that's talking to some infantry guys. They knew they would have personal encounter with people, and they'd see them, and that was quite different than what we did.
Did you prefer that detachment?
Yes. Yes. I would have been. I think it would have affected me a lot more to have been knowing that I was killing somebody hand to hand. I think that would be true of about anybody.
Yeah. The flight itself, as you'd said, with navigation errors and weather itself could be a problem. You had hazards other than enemy fire.
Yes, we did. We had, and if we were hitting a mission, getting back and making sure that the plane was flyable to get back, and a lot of they had strips in northern Luzon where you could get down if in an emergency, and there was always the danger of getting captured.
What were your orders in that case?
Well, when we'd go to Formosa, that was the longest mission. I could remember being briefed, and they told us that what we should do is lay low and travel at night and try to get to to the China coast or to the coast and steal a boat and go to China. Well, that would have been hard to do. But they did tell us if we thought we were going to be captured, we'd probably be better off to just shoot ourselves. Which I don't think I could have done that either. But it was, the Japanese were not like the Germans as far as what we read later about how they treated POWs. So I didn't have to experience that.
Just checking my notes. Did you sense a difference with regards to the enemy as you were flying your missions from the beginning to the end? Do you think they became more desperate, or?
Well, I think that they were. We didn't have any personal contact, but I had a sense that we were winning when I left better than because when we were going overseas, we stayed overnight at Hickam in the Hawaiian Islands, and they were bringing back wounded from Saipan because they just and that was a pretty bloody deal. And then we landed on Tarawa, and that had been a bloody deal. You could still, the stench there was still noticeable. And then we went, first Japanese that I saw was at Guadalcanal in the prison, and they're pretty surly. And by the time we finished up, it was kind of a different attitude. It looked like we'd have to invade, but it looked like we were winning the war. And history told us that Midway was the Battle of Midway was the turning point in World War II, and I agree with that.
By October of '44 and on, the Japanese resorted to kamikaze or suicide missions. And I read in one of the books that a B-24 pilot from the 5th encountered a plane-to-plane suicide mission. Were you ever warned of anything as far as?
No, never was. I'm trying to think. The one mission I remember that we did, and it even got written up in because it was symbolic, was the retaking of Corregidor, which was the island out in Manila Bay, and they had B-17s fly first, B-25s medium, and then us. And we came in low level and bombed, made 2 runs over there, and then our CO got us back, and we were flying, watching because they were landing paratroopers, and we wanted to watch. And the man in charge told our colonel, "Get your boys out of there," so many words, and get them out of there because there's too much going on, too many planes. So we had to leave, but it was a show, yeah. And it still took them, I think, several days after all that bombing, because they had all those caves and stuff in there that they were holed up in.
You did a lot of ground support missions.
Yes.
Did you ever have interactions with some of the ground troops, and what was your relationship with them?
No, I think one evening, a couple of infantry guys came up and talked, and I wasn't there, but they said in talking to them, they said, "Boy, we wouldn't want your job," and they said we wouldn't want yours either.
So each branch.
It's what you were trained, the way you were trained. You knew your job, and they didn't want to think they'd have to get up in the air, and we didn't think we'd want to be down there in hand-to-hand combat. Yeah. It wasn't our job.
Checking my notes.
How am I doing?
Great.
Good.
We had discussed prior to the interview Tom Brokaw's book, The Greatest Generation.
Yes.
As you reflect back on your service and the men you served with, do you feel that that is an accurate description?
Well, I don't know about that. I say this. My growing up, it was hard times. The 30s were rough times, and that was my childhood. Started to school in 1930 and ended up in 1942. So, and I would say that we experienced up to that time experiences that previous generations hadn't done. My class at high school was 99 students, and our class lost more in World War II than any other class. We lost 5 men, 5 boys in the war. And you figure that 99 students, half of them be boys, that'd be 10% of the boys in the class. That was pretty high. But they hit us just right. The senior year in high school was Pearl Harbor. So about everybody served. Almost everybody.
Do you consider...
So I considered that if Brokaw wants to tell me that I was in the greatest generation, I'll accept it. I won't argue with him. But I think we did go through a lot. And if you survived it, things got better after the war. You got a job, you got married, got a job, got a mortgage, and had kids, you know. So it worked out better.
Do you consider yourself a hero?
No. It's like somebody said, the heroes are the guys laying over there in France and in Hawaii and in graves. That's what they gave the. No, we did what we were told to do.
Did you serve with any men you considered heroes?
No, well, we were all doing the same thing, and you had to volunteer to do what, to be in combat. They didn't just assign you. We all wanted to do what we were doing. And I didn't think we had any heroes. They were all good guys. We were all young. And all the gunners and all the pilots were kids, really. That's what they wanted. The wars are planned by old guys and fought by young guys.
Were you angry at any point?
No.
Anymore?
No. I can't remember having any anger toward what I was doing. I would have been upset if I couldn't have been in the service for medical reasons or physical. I would have been upset, yeah.
When you got to your unit in the fall or the summer of 1944, did any of the older hands take you in and show you the ropes?
I was put in with 3 other guys in a tent, and we were all about the same age. I remember one guy was from Brooklyn, and one guy was from Seattle, and we got along fine. And we would, interesting, maybe I shouldn't go on about this, but we were, after every mission, we got 2 ounces of whiskey, which they suggested you drink right then, but we didn't do that. And we'd save up, and then we'd have a party, the 4 guys in the tent. And that was our recreation, And I don't ever remember of any hard fights or anything like that. We got along. Now, maybe other places they didn't, but we got along. We were a small group. We ate together, and we slept in the same tent together, and we flew together. And we all were wanting to complete our missions and go back home. That was our goal. And however you did it, well, that's what it was. But I don't remember any animosity.
And you had a certain number of missions as a gunner.
They were based on points. There were points for if a plane was shot down. There were points if there was ACAC in your airplane. They're different, and there were points on length of missions. And I think 95 points. It took about 50, 60 missions to get 95 points. And then that was when the flight surgeon would declare combat fatigue, they called it, and they'd ground you. Then the process would be that they would send the papers through to get you to go back to the United States for leave and reassignment. That's how it worked. And we all knew that when we got through that we would be back because they had to have that invasion, which didn't happen, thank God.
What were your thoughts about the atomic bombs and the end of the war?
Oh, we were elated. I don't know of anybody that wasn't happy to see that war end. It had been a grind. It made a lot of people, they don't think you had good jobs and everything, but we wanted that war over with and get back to normal life.
What were your thoughts when you were in the United States when the war ended?
I was in the United States when the war ended, yes.
And how did you transfer now from military life to civilian life? What was that transition?
It wasn't very hard. I gained a little weight, so my clothes didn't fit too well, so I had to get some new pants. I didn't want to wear khakis anymore. But no, it was finding a job and settling down. It was, I don't think it was all that difficult. We were young, and getting back into, in 1945, I can remember we were all home, my brother and my dad and me, and we had Christmas, and they had a dance that night at downtown, annual Christmas dance, and a lot of the guys were back, that we hadn't seen for 4 years. It was fun. It was a homecoming type thing. It was great.
And you were earmarked as far as being involved in if they were to invade the Japanese islands?
We were told we'd be going back there. We wouldn't be flying A-20s because we'd probably flying A-26s, which is a little bit bigger A-20. Yeah, there was no question that it wasn't a debatable thing. They told us we'd be going back to the war in Germany was over, and that we'd be going back there for the invasion of Japan. The atomic bomb, which we didn't know doodly about, if it's stopping the war, that's great for us.
Yeah.
I guess we were a little bit selfish, but I don't think anybody in my generation ever questioned or regretted dropping that bomb. Hindsight may dictate it different, but if you were faced with having to do what we were having to do, I think they would have been unanimous.
Yeah, public opinion polls in the United States were fairly favorable in August of 45.
I think Truman would have been impeached if he hadn't dropped that bomb and people knowing about it, because they were sick of the war. Mm-hmm. And they started it, Yeah. We didn't start it.
check my questions here. You know, obviously, I've been reading the history books.
Yeah.
And is there anything, as you look back on your time in the service and your memories, what do the history books leave out, or what do they get wrong as far as your service?
Well, the history books left out what I've read, or they just glossed over. What we did with the American Japanese, putting them in internment camps, I think that was wrong, and took away their properties. They were American citizens. But that's what happens, I guess, from what I read in history. In war, people get caught, they get scared, and the West Coast was scared they were going to be bombed. When I was out there, they had all kind of camouflage over these warplanes. And that's one of the things that I noted. And I don't know, I haven't read a lot of the history books in high school, but I know that there's some people that think we should never have dropped that bomb, and maybe they're right, because it opened up a whole new era. But I think at the time, I don't believe that that generation in 45 had any thoughts other than that to end that war.
Mm-hmm. Your father was involved in the Legion and veterans organizations.
Yes.
Were you, in the post-war, also involved in veterans organizations?
Yeah, I'm a life member of the American Legion. I've 67 consecutive years at American Legion. I was an officer in earlier times, but I have stayed in. My dad was commander of the American Legion. I was the adjutant. And a lot of his friends, American Legion has been a force for good service to the community where I live for a lot of years. And so I stayed active there.
As such, you had an opportunity to speak with veterans from different wars and different eras. Can you talk about that experience?
Well, I grew up knowing about World War I, and there wasn't any more wars till World War II, which I got a first-hand knowledge of. And I haven't really talked a lot to other that's some, and I think it's pretty tragic what's going on right now over there in Iraq, where we've lost a lot of people, and now they're taking all that stuff back, and it's a mess. But
when you reflect on the service of other wars and other conflicts, Vietnam War especially, as divisive as it was in society, how do you speak to veterans of that era?
The Vietnam guys, I think they got a raw deal. They were guys coming back from World War II. That was, popular and everything. But Vietnam, the veterans they got a raw deal, I think. And I admire those guys. But I really believe this: if they'd have had a draft, they had a draft in Vietnam, but it was a class deal. If you get to college, you didn't have to go to Vietnam. But if they'd have had a draft for Iraq, I don't think there'd have been a war.
Yeah.
I really believe that, but I can't prove it.
Do you see, with these other veterans, common themes or common bonds as far as duty and service, and what do those words mean?
I think that veterans have more of a sense of pride that a lot of people, not everybody, but I think that they are more aware of what they've done and what it means to have freedom. And what I notice is at a ball game or anything, guys that are veterans are standing there and they've got their hand over they're doing it. They're not looking around and chewing gum, and that's what I notice.
Mm-hmm.
Are we done?
Almost. I'm on my last question.
Oh, good.
What, as far as your legacy and the legacy of your generation, what do you want future generations to know about your time in the service during World War II?
I think that future generations should be aware of what was going on, and I think we didn't know enough about it, but that Holocaust thing, I think that alone was worth having a conflict about because I think it was pure evil. And if you ever go to Washington, D.C., I think one of the most important things to see there is the Holocaust Museum. If that doesn't stir you, I don't know what will. And to deny that there was a Holocaust, as some people have done, I think is just absolutely tragic. The anti-Semitism that was displayed by the Nazis is one of the worst things I've ever encountered by people to people.
And so there are things worth fighting for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Evil. This was evil. We all thought that Hitler was evil, and we didn't even know about a lot of this stuff. We did know that they didn't treat him well, but we didn't know they were mass killing them until, really, when they in the ETO, when they got in there into those camps and saw what was going on, it was terrible.
You got Stars and Stripes.
Yeah, well, yeah, occasionally.
Mm-hmm. And then there were, I believe, prisoner camps in the Philippines as well. Did you encounter that?
Yes, we went in one day, three of us, to Manila. Manila was a mess, but we went to Santa Tomas, which was where they held prisoners, and there were a lot of civilian prisoners of different countries, and they looked, they looked like they'd been starved to death. And it was, and I remember coming back on a Navy transport, coming back from Philippines back to the United States. They had some of those prisoners. One of them died on board the ship. An old Portuguese man, I think he was. Yeah, so we saw some of that.
What effect did that have on you?
Well, we knew, talking to some of the Filipinos, they treated them badly. They were glad to see us. They starved them, they beat them, they killed them, and what they did on that at the start of the war, that death march, you can see why my generation had that after the war didn't have a whole lot of use for the Japanese.
Is there anything that I have failed to ask you, Jim?
I can't think of a thing.
Any final words on your part?
No, I appreciate being able to be here. I thank you for the opportunity to express my views, and if it enlightens anybody, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Getting.
We done?
Almost. Maybe.
I didn't look once.
You did great.
Since he and his father were in service at the same time, did they ever talk about their experience together?
Oh, okay. Your father was a World War I
Yes.
veteran and served also in World War II.
Yes.
Did the two of you talk about military service?
Before I went in or afterwards?
Afterward.
Oh, yeah.
What conversations would you have?
Well, he was, but my brother and I both served overseas. He went in really after, he was younger than me, and he was a navigator on a B-24, and they flew over the hump from Karachi over into China delivering stuff, which I think the Chinese stole. But the two of us were not overseas very long at the same time, which was good. And I think that it had an effect on my dad. He developed ulcers, and I think it was from concern over us and being in harm's way. And I think that he knew war, and he was in World War I in combat, so he knew what war was. And we talked about it, and he was glad it was over, just like the rest of us. He wound up a major in World War II. He was a second lieutenant. He went over to a buck private and got a commission overseas in World War I, and he was in the field artillery. So, yeah, we made our contribution, the Dolan family, for the wars.
Mm-hmm. Let me check with Richard. We good? They're still talking.
Do you know of other families who had siblings in, can you repeat it, please?
I think I got it.
Siblings that were in at the same time?
Dead.
And could they keep track of each other?
Do you know of other families where the siblings were also all in the service, and how did they keep track of each other?
Oh, I don't know. I know my friends, you know, but we never really talked a lot about that. I remember reading about the Kellys and the Navy boys that were all killed.
I thought there was a Sullivans.
Sullivans, well, it was Irish.
Irish. Yeah. But yeah, after that incident, the military put an end to brothers serving together.
Listen, I have about that. A fellow from here, from Hartford City, who I grew up with, and he was down in Florence, South Carolina, and he was flying A-20s, and we were all in training down there. And he came over one morning, and he said, "Hey, Jim," we'd carried papers together. We grew up together. We knew each other. He said, "How would you like to be my gunner?" I said, "Well, I'm already assigned." I didn't know Don that well anyway. I said, "Hell yes." And so he said, "Let's go over to CO and talk to him about it." So he's a second lieutenant, and I'm a buck sergeant then. And we walked in there, and CO said, he said to the CO, "Sergeant Dolan and I'd like to be assigned together in a crew." He said, "Why?" And Bill said, "Well, we're from the same place. We grew up together. We carried newspaper. We know each other, and we like each other." And he said, where are you from?" And he said, Bill said, "Hartford City, Indiana." He said, "Well, how big is Hartford City?" He said, "Oh, 6,000 to 7,000 people." He said, "No way. No way am I going to do that." He said, "If you guys both get shot down and killed in the same day, that's not good civilian morale. We won't do that." So we walked out.
And he had a point, I think.
Yeah, he did. So Bill and I, we both got through in fine shape. But he was flying, and it was kind of interesting to see somebody from home, And I don't think the military discipline would have worked very well on that.
You two would have been too familiar.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And we talked about it in one afternoon. He said, "Hey, I've got an RON. It was a remain overnight to Bear Field. You want to go?" And I said, He said, I've already talked to your pilot. He said, if you can get away, as far as I'm concerned, go. So we went. He said, I think we're going to get weathered in until about Wednesday. And I said, okay. So we landed at Bear, and he had a sister in Fort Wayne he was going up. He said, how are you going to get home? I said, I'm going to go up here to 3 and hitchhike. He said, like hell you are. He said, here's $20. You can pay me after the war. You take a bus. I'm your commanding officer.
So he pulled rank on you.
Yeah, and we did. We got weathered until Wednesday, and went home. Had a few days at home. It was fun. But yeah, he was a great guy, and it would have been interesting to been on his crew, but it worked out. He went to Europe, and I went to the Pacific.
Would you have preferred Europe?
I didn't have any idea where I was going, and wherever it was okay with me. I didn't care. Yeah. After training, we wanted to go use training. We wanted to do our job. It didn't really matter.
You were just eager to contribute.
Yeah. That's right. We were kids, you know. It was everybody else was in it. We wanted to be in it too. You don't realize what you're getting into sometimes when you're that young.
After the war in 45, 46,
yes,
if you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell that person?
I think in a thing like we were in, I think it's your duty to, if you want to accept the good stuff of this country, it's worth keeping it, preserve it, and if you have to fight for it, you should. It should. I don't think it would hurt young people today to give a service of a year to their country. It doesn't have to be the military, but like Peace Corps or something. I think that would be good.
Yeah.
I think there would be some discipline that would be encountered that wouldn't hurt, but that probably will never happen, but that's the way I feel.
That's great. Well, Jim, thank you so much for taking your time. Oh, I'm getting. Oh.
What did I do now?
Yeah. We need, let me ask you, what was your final ending rank? Did you receive any honors or awards? And what was your squadron?
My squadron was the 312th Bomb Group, 386 Bomb Squadron, 5th Air Force, Southwest Pacific, World War II. What else did you ask?
Rank.
My rank was Staff Sergeant. I received Air Medal, and that was the medal of for flight. That was for combat missions, and the gunners usually always got an Air Medal. That's my medal.
No.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I know that was probably terrible, but you said you had a good editor, so
we have excellent editors.
So I don't know whether you can make anything out of that, but try.
The problem is the person asking the question.
No, it isn't. You did.
Dunderheaded.
It was fine. I think it got covered pretty well, don't you?
Do you have a closing you want to put on this?
Well, Jim, on behalf of WIPB TV and Ball State University and the Ford Oval of Honor program, I'd like to thank you for your participation and your service to our country in World War II. And I will finish my saying and give you the floor for any last words.
Well, I thank you for what you said. I enjoyed this. I hope that it was somewhat informative, and I hope you have a good editor on this thing.